Hello everyone and welcome back to this next lecture. So in this lecture I'm going to talk about some of the hardware requirements of this course. Because this course is after all some kind of a hardware course because we'll be using microcontrollers, and therefore you would need not just a microcontroller but you'll also need to set up a basic home lab so that you can actually follow along with the course. Now of course, if you are working in a company or you are a student at a university and you have good facilities such as oscilloscopes and other electronic components, then of course all you need is the microcontroller kit. But however, if you are learning independently, that is either from your own home or from some other kind of facility where you do not have any other electronics facilities or such as components, then in that case, this lecture will also describe how you can set up a basic home lab with some basic electronic components. So, as I already said, in order to follow along with this course, it is recommended that you actually program microcontrollers while watching videos, because that's what I'll be doing in this course. I'll be creating projects, I'll be setting up the microcontrollers, the peripherals, and finally I'll be showing a video of my development kit and how it behaves when the code is executed. So this means that this course will not just cover theory, but there will be live coding sessions and there'll be a video in which I will show my development kit and I will show waveforms on the oscilloscope and maybe other visual effects such as glowing LEDs. So therefore, for this reason, I would strongly recommend that you purchase a TMS320 F28379D microcontroller kit. Now, the good news is that this kit is available in a very low cost version, and this is available either from Texas Instruments directly or from several other vendors who also sell not just Texas Instruments kits but kits by other manufacturers. So these kits are very popular and most vendors usually have them in stock, which means that if you place an order, you will receive them in just a few days. So this is an image of the Launch XL F28379D development kit. So this is a development kit which has this TMS320 F28379D microcontroller. So this particular chip here that you see, this large chip, this is the microcontroller chip. And they have created this card which has everything in it. This has the microcontroller, it has crystals, it has pins for interfacing. That is, you can access your GPIO pins, you can access the analog input pins and several other things. And moreover, it has a USB connection. So you can connect with a USB cable, which is also provided with this kit, to your computer. And you can now write programs using Code Composer Studio. You can compile those programs. You can program this microcontroller directly through the USB connection. Right? So everything is included with this one kit. You don't have to purchase anything else. You will have to purchase, of course, an electronics lab, and that will come very soon. But this particular kit is all you need in terms of the microcontroller. So the cost of this is approximately $40, right? You might have to pay something for shipping as well. And it includes the USB cable. So you don't have to buy a separate data cable. The USB cable is a part of this particular kit. And I would strongly recommend that you buy one for learning and development. If you are serious about microcontrollers, this kit is a great asset. You can always have this kit with you. You can always try out different examples. It's something that I would say, if you are ever thinking about going into embedded systems or control, strongly recommend you to buy this one. So now that I've shown you this kit and I told you what this kit is all about, let me go over to the Texas Instruments website and also one particular vendor, and I will show you how you can purchase this particular kit. So now in my Google Chrome web browser, choose any web browser you want. You don't have to use Google Chrome. And once we come to Google Chrome, I will type Texas Instruments. So this is the website of Texas Instruments, that is ti.com. I will just open it in a new tab. And this is the website. So here we can use the search bar to search for our microcontroller. So I'm going to just search for the keyword F28379D. That's all you need. And you see this is the F28379D. This comes to, you can go to the main product, that is, this is the microcontroller. And I will come to this page again and again later on in this course as well, because this has everything related to this microcontroller. Now, if we scroll all the way down, you can come to design hardware development. And in this hardware development, you have several options by which you can buy it. So these are all different development kits for various purposes. So for example, the first one actually has an entire rectifier itself, not just the microcontroller, but also a rectifier. But what we are interested in is the Launch XL F28379D. And if you come down here, you will find this here. So this Launch XL F28379D is exactly what I showed you before. And here you will see this is what it is. Now I'll come to it a little later because we will also be downloading the actual starter kit. But for now, let's come over to view options and open that in a new page. So here is this is the kit. This is exactly the same image I showed you before. And if you come over here, you will see that this costs around $39 US. Now, if you want to order it from Texas Instruments, you will have to log in and then go and place an order. But what I'm going to do is instead, or you can even click on order now, but it will still take you to the login page. So what I will do instead is I will take you to a vendor where you can also place this. Now there are different vendors in different parts of the world. So wherever you are, choose the electronics vendor who is most popular, right? Now in North America, one particular popular vendor for electronics is DigiKey. So let me go over to the DigiKey website and show you where that is. So again, this is DigiKey. DigiKey is just one particular electronics components distributor, right? This need not be. You might even find these on Amazon, or you might find these on, I don't think you will find them on things like Temu, but you can always try. But in any case, as I already said, different parts of the world will have different popular electronics component distributors. Please choose whoever it is that is there close to you. This microcontroller kit is very popular, and the chances are wherever you are in the world, your popular electronics component distributor will have a stock of it. So again, I'm going to go and just type the keyword F28379D. And you see this is where it is, embedded MCU and DSP evaluation boards. So let me open that in a new tab. And you get exactly the same thing here. So take a look at what we have here. You'll see that this is listed as $68, but this is because I'm in Canada and this is in Canadian dollars. It's actually around 40 US dollars, which is why you see a different price here. And you'll see, most importantly, you'll see there is a 276 of these in stock. And typically this is a component that is almost always in stock because it is just so popular. So you can go and place an order for this, and you'll receive this in just a few days because it is in stock, right? So again, these are just two options where you can buy it. You can buy it directly from Texas Instruments or whichever electronic component distributor that is there in the country where you are living, right? So with this, I'm going to go back to my presentation. So I'm now back in the presentation. And again, if you have any more doubts about how you can purchase this, please do post in the Q&A forum and I'll be happy to help you out. I would strongly recommend that you buy a cheap oscilloscope, and the reason is that a large amount of the examples in this course will be related to pulse width modulation, and we are dealing with high frequency signals in kilohertz of frequencies, and those you cannot do those experiments with flashing LEDs, right? For example, if it's only a couple of hertz or a few hertz, the frequencies that we are generating, we could actually just flash LEDs. So, but those are not possible with pulse width modulation, right? Because to make this course practical, and actually applicable in power electronics, it is essential that I generate some practical pulse width modulation examples. And for that reason, I would say go ahead and buy a cheap oscilloscope. So I have this specific oscilloscope with me. Alright, so this is something I bought from Amazon, and my suggestion is whatever oscilloscope you buy, please buy one with at least 2 channels. And the reason is that we need 2 channels for comparing waveforms. If you have a single channel, you can observe one waveform, but you can't compare it with anything else. So if you have 4 or 6 channels, by all means go ahead. Like for example, if you are already studying at a company, you're studying at a university or at a company, and you have good lab facilities, go ahead and use good oscilloscopes. You don't have to buy this. This is an option for those who are building a home lab, who are doing this personally on their own and on their own time, right? This one costs around $50 USD. I bought it from Amazon, and I'll show you that link very soon. Whichever oscilloscope you choose to buy, please buy one with at least 10 megahertz bandwidth. Alright, the reason is that we will be generating frequencies, PWM frequencies up to around 10 megahertz, around 10 kilohertz, sorry. We'll be generating around 10 kilohertz because we are talking about general switching frequencies for power converters, right? And look for something which is around 50 megasamples per second, right? In terms of its own sampling frequency, because otherwise you will end up with very granular waveforms which don't really look good, nor do they actually give you an understanding of how things work, right? So look for at least 2 channels, look for something with at least 10 megahertz bandwidth and at least 50 megasamples per second, right? Now, this one has a signal generator, but you do not need a signal generator, right? In this course, I will not be using a signal generator or a DC power supply or anything else. The signals will be generated using the microcontroller itself, right? For those examples where you need a different kind of waveform, I will be showing you how you can actually create those waveforms using your microcontroller, right? So you do not need a signal generator. So do not, if you have an oscilloscope with a signal generator, by all means use it. But I would say do not bother with signal generation when you are looking for an oscilloscope. You just need 2 channels, 10 megahertz bandwidth and 50 megasamples per second. Now I'll go over to the Amazon website and I'll just show you how to look for some oscilloscopes. So I'm back on my Chrome browser and I'm just going to type Amazon. Alright, finally decided I was not a robot. So anyway, let me come and look for low cost oscilloscopes. Alright, and here you will get some low cost oscilloscopes. Now you can actually decrease this cost. I'm going to decrease it all the way up to around 100 because this is Canadian dollars, so therefore that's good enough. And let me click on Glow. So you see some of these will show up, and these are all prices listed in Canadian dollars. Check it out. What's important is, as I said, you must look for something which is at least two channels per second. 2 channels, sorry. So something like this won't do, right? Because clearly it has one single channel, right? And let's come all the way down here. Yeah, this one will do because it has 2 channels, and this is actually the one which I have. Again, I'm not endorsing anything. All I'm saying is whatever you choose, look into them and look for something which is at least 2 channels up. Unfortunately, I do not see a way to actually narrow down your search, but you would have to look through and just look for something with 2 channels and the other specifications which I told you, right? There are a few, and at different, like for example, this is probably more than even that. But anyway, as I said, more channels are always welcome, but do not buy one with only a single channel. That won't work. Like something like this with a single channel will not work because you cannot compare signals. And later when we actually work with pulse width modulation and we are looking at phase shift control, then you will not be able to observe the phase difference between waveforms. Now I'm going to go back to my presentation. So I'm back in my presentation, and besides the oscilloscope, we also need a few more components. So for example, I would recommend that you buy maybe 1 or 2 solderless breadboards, and I'll go over and show them as well. This is very good for connecting auxiliary circuits, right? So for example, I will be showing you how you can connect LEDs to your GPIO pins. You can flash the LEDs, you can turn them on, turn them off, and these are quite useful even in power electronic applications, because you can use these pins to control, number one, LEDs for display, like you want to show to the user that there is an overcurrent error, overcurrent fault, or an undervoltage fault, or sometimes even you want to use it for control, like you want to use it to turn off a relay, which in turn controls a contactor, right? So you want to disconnect your converter from the grid. Then you can use these GPIOs for that purpose. And this way, using these breadboards, we will play around with some small circuits. So the cost of these solderless breadboards is around $5, right? Around about. Now, you should buy a small roll of wire, and I would recommend around 22 AWG. This is necessary for small connections, making connections on your breadboard, making connections from your microcontroller kit and other places, things like that. Again, a small roll of wire is probably around $5. Again, you will need a wire stripper or cutter, because quite obviously you do need to strip these wires, you need to cut them and things like that. So please, you will need a wire stripper or cutter. Now, I will use a few resistors in this course. The most common, I will use only one resistor, and this is a 2 kilo ohm 0.25 watt or quarter watt 1% resistor, right? You can buy just a few of these. I would say buy around 4 or 5 of these, or if you want, I will show you very soon on Amazon, you can buy a small box for just around US dollar 10. So this small box will have a resistor collection from like 1 ohm all the way up to 1 mega ohm, and maybe each value is around, you have around 10 of each, right? So that's pretty good to start a home lab. Now you will also need 2 electrolytic capacitors, right? This is when I'm describing how to use the analog to digital converter, we will be converting a digital signal to a kind of an analog signal. We'll be creating a sawtooth waveform, and we'll be feeding that sawtooth waveform to the analog channel, right? So for that, we need two electrolytic capacitors, 10 microfarad and 22 microfarad, right? So you can buy only these if you want, 2 kilo ohm resistor and 10 microfarad and 22 microfarad electrolytic capacitors. And the voltage rating should be around 25 volts, because after all, we are working with a microcontroller with max 5 volts, right? So anything more than 5 volts will do. If it can even buy like 12 volts or 15 volts, no problem. You can, however, also buy a small box of electrolytic capacitors for around $10. And I'll show you that on Amazon also. This is if you want to set up a small home lab and you want to play around with electronic circuits, such a box can be useful. Again, they have electrolytic capacitors from 0.1 microfarad all the way up to 1000 microfarad. Now, you will need a few jumper cables, and these jumper cables are necessary for making connections from your microcontroller kit to the breadboard. And again, you need around 5 of 10 of these. I would say around 5-6 of these will also do. But you can buy a small bunch, a small box for around $5. So now I'll go again to Amazon and show you where you can buy these. So I'm back on my Amazon website. I'm going to go up, and now I'm going to search for all those things which I said. So the very first thing is solderless breadboards. Yeah. So this is the second one. And as you can see, there are many options. You can buy a pack of 3. You can buy whichever you want, however you want. As you can see, the price is around, these are all Canadian dollars, so it's going to be even less in US dollars, right? So these are solderless breadboards. Now, I will show you a wire stripper. You can buy any different type of wire stripper. Again, many of these are actually will be both stripper and cutter, and I have one of these. I have something similar to this. So these are quite convenient, because you can, main thing is just make sure you can strip a 22 AWG wire, right? That's all that you need to make sure, because some of these have different ranges. They only use some are used only for very fine wires, some are used for very large wires. So just make sure that you know what it is. And I will just say wire 22 AWG. So this, you can buy any one of these, like for example, just one of these will do, or you can buy black and white. You can buy a whole box. You can see there are different prices. Again, Canadian dollars. So just check it out, right? Whichever you want. The cheapest is, for this, you just need a few connections to be made. So you don't need a great amount. If there is an electronic store close to you, you can just go buy a small bundle as well. That will be just as fine, right? Now I'm going to go to resistors. So again, as I said, you can buy a small box, right? The main thing is try to buy 1% resistors. Don't buy 5% resistors, right? Because 1% resistors means the error, the tolerable error is just 1. And that's usually better, especially when you start using small values, resistors of low value. 5% can actually be a fairly large error, right? So choose 1% resistors. You can choose any of these. Like for example, this is an entire assorted kit from 1 ohm all the way up to 3 mega ohm, right? But look at the prices. These are all Canadian dollars. This in US dollars is around 10, right? We need only one, which is around 2 kilo ohm. Even if you use 2.2, that's also okay. If you have, again, if there's an electronic store close to you, just walk over and buy just a few resistors. That will also do. So now that resistors are done, I'll talk about capacitors. And again, here you can see this, you can buy a box, right? So there are different prices. It's an assorted box from small all the way to big. I bought one of these because I'll be doing several such experiments in the future. Again, you need only 2. If you really want to cut your cost, you can buy only a 22 microfarad capacitor and a 10 microfarad capacitor. But if you want to set up a home lab, you can buy any one of these, right? So with this, I think we've covered pretty much everything. I will go back to my presentation. Actually, I forgot one thing, which is a jumper cable. So let me show you that before I go back. So jumper cables. No, these aren't what I want. Just look for jumper cables for electronics, because quite often you end up with car jumper cables. You don't want those. So for example, if you check these out, these should be good. Make sure that you have male to female. That is, on one end you have a male. This is necessary for connection to your solderless breadboard. And the other side you have a female, which you can connect on your microcontroller pins, right? So this one is an assorted box. So it has like female to female, which you can use for connecting between microcontroller pins. You have male to male. I guess this is if you want to connect between breadboards. And you have a male to female, right? So something like this would be just as fine, right? So this is for 10 Canadian dollars, right? So I think with this, we've covered most of the small components we need. And now I can go back to my presentation. So back in my presentation, this is the list of components that you should buy for this course. Again, they all, unfortunately, when you're doing hardware, you do need to buy some components. So let me just summarize what we need in the next lecture.
So, being a mini hardware course, additional purchases are unfortunately necessary, because if it's an electronic course, it just doesn't do justice to just follow along with a particular example. You must, really speaking, perform some of the experiments yourself, observe waveforms on your own and things like that to actually fully appreciate a particular microcontroller. And therefore, for this reason, if you really want to continue with this course, even if you are working from home, that is, if you're just studying on your own independently, just watching the videos will not really be much use. Try to set up a basic home lab with which you can actually program the microcontroller and gain some confidence. So again, just a little recap of the amount of cost that you'll be done. If you're using this Launch XL F28379D kit, then in that case, we're talking about a cost of around 150 USD for setting up the entire home lab. And once you have this basic setup, you will have a functioning mini lab with which you can complete this course. And not only can you complete this course, you can actually do some small electronic experiments on your own. So for this reason, I would say that setting up a home lab is highly recommended if you're working alone. If on the other hand, you're working in a company or you're a student at a university, such as you're a graduate student, and you have a good equipped laboratory, then you don't need to buy the oscilloscope or all the other components. Those will all be there available to you. The only thing you need is the microcontroller, and that's just $40, right? The rest is all stuff which will be available to you as either an employee of the company or a student at the university. So this is something that I would strongly recommend to invest in, because not only can you follow this course, but also future courses which I hope to complete with not just this kit, but with other kits from Texas Instruments and other manufacturers as well. So this course was basically to highlight all the hardware requirements of this course. Things which I would suggest that you buy in order to be able to follow through with this course, complete all the experiments, and gain a full understanding of the microcontroller. If any of this was not clear to you, or if any of this could not be found in a particular location, my suggestion is reach out to some electronics forums as well, wherever you are, and post about how you can buy certain types of components. In many places, you can just go over to an electronics store and buy components. In some places, there is almost no electronic store anymore. You have to buy everything online and have it shipped to you. Whichever works is okay. So again, any questions, any doubts, please post in the Q&A forum and I'll be happy to help you. Otherwise, I will see you in the next lecture where I'll talk about some of the software requirements of this course. Thank you so much for listening and see you soon. Goodbye for now.